My friends, today Iran fired once again at a ship here in the Strait of Hormuz. A cargo ship, civilian, unarmed, passing through the middle of the strait. Iran opened fire on it. And it wasn't an accident before anyone tries to say that it was a message. It was Iran telling the whole world at gunpoint, the strait is mine now. Whoever passes through here passes when I allow it and by the route I choose. That's what they're saying. And the greatest power on the planet, or at least it used to be the greatest power on the planet, the United States, do you know what it did in the face of all this? Absolutely nothing, neither before nor after. At least up until the time this video was recorded, there has been no American statement about what happened today in the Strait of Hormuz. Local time, 12:34 midnight, exactly on the 26th, guys, on the 26th. So if you're watching this video in the future, there might already be a statement from Trump or the American government. And the greatest power on the planet, the United States, hasn't done absolutely anything yet, guys, nothing. Look at the size of this turnaround. Iran, which never in history, we need to make this very clear, never in history controlled the Strait of Hormuz, today controls it. In other words, after the war, Iran. They started controlling the Strait of Hormuz, firing at ships, giving orders over the radio, and doing whatever they want. This has a name, okay? It has a very clear name. This is called total surrender. And the most surreal thing is that while this is happening in real life, the United States is selling, at least to their own public or even to part of the world, a completely different story. A story of peace, of a signed agreement, of a well behaved Iran, and of the Strait. In real life, there's the agreement that the United States describes, and then there's what is actually happening. And the two have become, you could say, different planets. And today I'm going to try, at least try, to put these two worlds side by side for you. And look at what else is in this video, folks. Three different versions that contradict each other about an alleged Israeli withdrawal in Lebanon. And you're going to find out who's making up this story. The US Secretary of State himself kind of contradicting Trump today, Iran openly mocking Trump, and in the middle of all this confusion, Israel does the opposite of everyone else. They don't just talk, they act. And today, there were three major moves: a campaign to dry up the Iranian regime's funds, a diplomatic punch right at Erdogan's weak spot, and Israel's most ambitious target yet. This last one here. This last one I'll save for the grand finale of this video. Because it's a place where no country in the world today can do what Israel wants to do. So stay with me until then, because it's extremely important. Let's start here with the sea, with the Strait of Hormuz. This is what we're seeing right now in real time, guys. This is in real time, okay? The movement of ships in the Strait of Hormuz right at this moment. Let's start here, guys. Pay close attention. The United States had been saying that everything was resolved. You remember that, right? That Hormuz was open, free, and that ships were passing through there without any problems. Now look at what actually happened today. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard issued an emergency warning on the radio channel that ships use at sea, and the warning was as follows, quote, "No one passes through the Strait of Hormuz without authorization from our Navy and only along the routes that we define. Any ship that tries to pass without permission will face all the consequences." End quote. That was said over the radio, directed at all the ships that were trying to pass at that moment. To translate that for you, Iran literally declared itself the owner of the strait. Anyone who wants to pass has to get their permission and follow the route they dictate, and whoever disobeys will pay the price. And it didn't stop at just a warning. A cargo ship was hit by a missile today in the Strait of Hormuz, near the coasts of Oman. The Wall Street Journal confirmed through official American sources that it was Iran that hit this ship. A cargo ship with a Singaporean flag. And here's the detail that gives it all away, folks. This ship was traveling along a route that Iran had not authorized. It was hit precisely because of that. Remember, you can only travel along a route previously authorized by Iran and with Iran's authorization. You can't sail through there without asking for authorization. For now, they're not charging, okay? Remember that until the 60 days are up, after the end of those 60 days, you'll have to pay. Besides talking to them, you'll need to pay. And today's result, three cargo ships turned around, recalculated their route, and came back out of fear. afraid of being hit as well because of Iran's order. In other words, in real life, not in the fantasy world of the United States. In real life, Iran is controlling the Strait with gunfire, they're demanding obedience at gunpoint, and meanwhile, the United States hasn't reacted. Guys, for now, nothing, neither before nor after. And there's more. The Wall Street Journal also reported another figure that explains why Iran is so interested. Iran expects to make billions from this new toll in the Strait of Hormuz. According to this newspaper, that's something close to $40 billion a year in security and service fees to let ships pass. 40 billion a year. Now you understand why Iran won't want to give up on this so easily. Just a reminder for those who forgot. Before the war, the Strait was open, okay? The Strait of Hormuz was open without anyone charging a fee. Not Iran, not Oman, not anyone, guys. No one. And while Iran shoots at ships to impose its own rules, do you know what the United States did? They announced that they are going to open a direct military communication line with Iran. Direct meetings between representatives of the Revolutionary Guard and the US military command over in Qatar. And they sold this as a major diplomatic breakthrough. Look at that, folks. I don't know if we're living in a parallel world, but what's happening here in this region seems surreal. An American official is going to sit in the same room with a representative of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, the same guard that the United States itself once classified as a terrorist organization. You remember that, right? The same guard that just fired at a ship and the same guard that did what they did to the protesters. This same guy is going to sit face to face with the American military command. It sounds like a joke, folks. What's happening here is simply surreal. It's surreal. It's unbelievable that this is true. Impressive. This isn't both sides negotiating as equals. This is one side giving in and giving in completely, right? And the other side testing, going deeper and deeper, testing how far they can go. And the worst part is that it's working for Iran. It's working for Iran. They give a warning, they act on the ground, and the Americans don't respond. They do absolutely nothing. And then Iran comes to the negotiating table even stronger, knowing they can do anything. They really are. You have to hand it to them. They're the real winners of this war with the United States, right? That's the truth, folks. Let's make that very clear. This is the first gap between the discourse and the facts. In the discourse, Hormuz is open, and at peace. In fact, Iran is shooting at ships and forcing anyone who wants to pass to ask for permission first. And now comes the most revealing part of all, because this time the one who disproves this fairy tale is the American government itself. It's Marco Rubio himself. Pay close attention to this because it's important, folks. Trump sold the world the image of a new Iran. Remember that? A new regime, right? That old regime doesn't exist anymore. This new one is a new regime. Iran on its knees, Iran that has changed. But the American Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, on the same day, said the opposite. He spoke like this about the Iranian regime. Quote, "The Iranian regime is still being led by extremist clerics. That's what has always ruled Iran, and that's what continues to rule it." End quote. Did you catch that? The top figure in American diplomacy openly admitted that the Iranian regime hasn't changed at all, that it remains in the hands of the same radical clerics as always. In other words, the American government is contradicting itself, right? Because the president says that Iran has changed, right? Which is the third layer. It's no longer the same Iran, it's a new regime. And then Marco Rubio comes and says the complete opposite. Which one are you going to believe? I believe Marco Rubio. Of course, Marco Rubio is right. And Rubio made another strong point. He explained in his own words why this business of charging ships a toll in Hormuz is impossible in practice. Pay attention to Marco Rubio's reasoning. Quote, "It was in an interview, okay? On Fox News, I think that's it." He said the following. "Let's suppose we had completely lost our minds and accepted a toll system at sea. How would that work? It wouldn't. And what if the ship simply doesn't pay? It's not a road toll. You can't just send a fine by mail. The only way to collect is by shooting at the ship. It means destroying the ship. And the moment you shoot at the ship and sink it, no other ship will dare to move. Everything gets stuck again. So this system isn't just stupid. It simply can't exist. Drop this fantasy right now." End quote. On one side, Trump saying that everything is open, there's no problem, there are no tolls, and there will never be tolls. On the other side, Marco Rubio explaining that this doesn't make any sense. If things keep going the way they are, it doesn't make any sense. Imagine a ship deciding not to pay just like us. It's like skipping a toll or covering your license plate, right? Just as some cars hide their license plates to avoid camera fines, it's the same idea. The ship turns off its system, thinking it won't be detected by radar. They can definitely see it. That's basically what happened today. But imagine it going through and refusing to pay. The guy would fire a missile at it instead of just sending a ticket. So you get the logic, right? To charge a toll in this sea, someone has to shoot at those who don't pay, and shooting at a ship shuts down the whole strait. Nobody else gets through. That's why Marco Urubi swore it was a fantasy that would never happen. But is it happening, Marco Urubi? It's happening now. And here's the cruelest irony of the day. On the same day he said that, on the very same day, just hours before, right? He said that. And hours later, Iran fired at a ship exactly as he described. What the American Secretary of State called impossible, Iran turned into reality in a matter of hours. And the United States is still, up to the moment this video is being recorded, doing nothing, guys. Doing nothing. No statement, nothing, nothing. As if nothing happened over there. And Iran, of course, didn't miss the chance to rub it in everyone's face. The president of Iran's parliament, Gali Ghalibaf, made a venomous jab at Trump. It turns out that Trump had already said he was going to release money, you remember that, frozen Iranian assets, so they could buy food from American farmers, and Gali Ghalibaf responded like this, quote, America claims, with no right at all, that the unfrozen assets for us will be used to buy American agricultural products. How interesting. The only harvest we reap is what you have sown, decades of mistrust. That one is truly organic, abundant, and homegrown. But it seems that the United States only exports genetically modified soybeans, broken promises, and nonsense. End quote. Look at that, folks. Just listen to Ghalibaf's tone, his arrogance. This is not the tone of someone who's on their knees at all. Does this sound to you like someone who's surrendering, raising the white flag? It's the tone of someone who feels like they're winning, and it didn't stop with him, okay? The commander of the Quds Force, which is Iran's branch outside the country, right? The branch is that unit that operates outside Iran. It's like their Mossad, his Mossad, we can call it that. The so-called Khan showed up once again. Khan made a direct threat to Israel. Quote, if Israel doesn't withdraw from southern Lebanon on its own today, okay? Today, actually, already an hour ago, because here it's 12:48 at night. If they don't withdraw today, they will leave there defeated tomorrow. End quote. And the spokesperson for Iranian diplomacy, Baghail, his name is Baghail, added, saying that the Americans have never been sincere with Iran, that Iran entered the talks in good faith, but knows that the enemy's hatred doesn't end with a signature. And this same gap between what is said and what actually happens was exposed today in a second place in Lebanon, right where the commander of the Quds forces just threatened that Israel will come out defeated. Remember, I told you earlier today that the talks between Israel and Lebanon started in the United States and then stalled, right? It seems that the talks stalled over there because today 3 different versions of the same story came out and they don't match. You probably read one of these versions. I'm here to bring you all 3. Version number, the American version, a source from the US State Department said through Reuters news agency that Israel would have pulled back from parts of the protection zone, that it's set up in southern Lebanon as a gesture of goodwill toward the Lebanese government, and that now the Lebanese army should enter the area from which Israel withdrew. That plan seems wonderful, all neat and tidy. One leaves, the other enters. Version number 2, the Lebanese version. A military source from Lebanon itself said, through Al Jazeera, the following, that they did not identify any withdrawal by Israel, that Israeli forces remain exactly where they were in all the areas they took, no withdrawal at all. And version number 3, this is the one that settles it, the Israeli version. Sources from the Israeli army told the Israeli press that they have not received any order to withdraw from the protection zone. So there you have the 3 versions side by side. The Americans say that Israel withdrew willingly, the Lebanese say they didn't see any withdrawal, and the Israeli army itself says it hasn't received any order to withdraw. 3 versions, and at least two of them can't be true at the same time. Someone here is making up a story, someone is announcing a withdrawal on the ground that nobody saw happen. And why is it so important for you to understand these three versions? Because that's how we build pressure on Israel. They announce a gesture that Israel didn't make, like the Americans did, so later they can demand the next step from Israel. It's the old tactic of putting words in someone else's mouth, right? Israel left there, but Israel is still there. But they left, so they went back there. They're trying to create a situation against Israel, that's the truth. But on the ground, Israel hasn't moved. And even so, Marco Rubio went public to say that they're close to a framework agreement between Israel and Lebanon about the project to disarm Hezbollah. Close to an agreement, once again, only in speeches, with no actual withdrawal on the ground. And again, what is being said and what is happening are on different planets or in parallel realities. And do you want proof that Israel hasn't pulled back at all on the ground? Look, Israeli forces acted just a little while ago, folks, not even 2 hours ago, on Al Tara mountain. Remember the mountain where there are terrorists? That same region that Israel demands to be cleared. A team identified a Hezbollah group that was threatening the soldiers and took the threat out of the picture, meaning they sent them to meet up with Hassan Nasrallah as quickly as possible. At another location, they identified a man, another armed Hezbollah terrorist, and did the same, took him out of the picture. This happened today in the same area where the US says Israel has already withdrawn. And the message from the Israeli army was clear: the forces remain on the mountain and are not letting Hezbollah men leave the tunnels or move around the area. Look at the contrast, right? Up top, there's talk of withdrawal that no one confirms. On the ground, Israel is tightening the siege and not letting the enemy breathe. And here I'll give you my take on this once again, because there's something here that needs to be said. Just look at the whole picture. Iran attacks a ship, Iran threatens Israel, Iran mocks Trump, and the United States, on top of all that, offers a direct line of communication and unfrozen money. When the aggressor comes out on top and still gets rewarded like that, he won't stop. He understands that it's worth continuing. Weakness, when it's rewarded, becomes fuel. Especially for that Persian and Arab mindset. They've already seen Trump's weakness, folks. They've already seen the weakness of the United States, and now they'll go all the way, demanding a little more each time. As they've already said, the next step is that they'll bring up the issue of Gaza at the negotiating table. They'll likely demand Israel withdraw from Gaza, though that's not happening. Still, that's the next step since they're conceding everything. The Americans have conceded on everything and will likely do the same for the Gaza Strip, at least in intention, since Israel won't comply. And that's exactly why the next part is so important. Because while the United States lives in a make-believe world, there's a country that decided to live in the world of facts. And that country is Israel, folks. Never stops thinking. And before we continue, let me ask you for a quick favor. If you're finding this content useful, then leave a thumbs up, a like, whatever you prefer. That way, it will push this video to more people if you leave your like and subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell. It only takes a second, guys. It's really quick and it helps a lot with the work here. With that done, let's move on to the part that got me most excited today. While the United States describes a peace that doesn't exist, what does Israel do first? Prime Minister Netanyahu made it clear that Israel hasn't finished the job. He said the following, open quotes, "We still have missions to accomplish. We still have things to do against Iran and against Hamas." Close quotes. In other words, there's still a lot to happen ahead. And then he said a phrase that says a lot about how Israel sees this moment. He said that the importance of the current war, which he called the War of Resurrection, is no less than the importance of Israel's War of Independence. Look at the weight of this comparison that Netanyahu made. The War of Independence was the war that created the State of Israel in 1948. When Netanyahu compares today's struggle with that one, he's saying that what's at stake now is the very survival and the very rebirth of the country. It's not just another operation or an extra one, another operation. It's an existential operation. Second, and this is where Israel clashes with American policy, the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, stated something that goes directly against the United States. He wants to block the money going to Iran. It has become one of the fronts. He said it has become one of the most important fronts for Israel's security. And look at the reason he gave, right? Open quotes, every dollar that goes into the Ayatollah's coffers is a dollar that becomes an Iranian missile. drone in Lebanon, rocket in Gaza, and another drone in Yemen. Every dollar that reaches Iran is a dollar that can find its way to Hezbollah, Hamas, and the other armed branches of the regime. That's why the economic front against Iran is one of the most important for Israel's security. End quote. Just a second. And And now, Katz also didn't go into detail. He didn't explain how he's going to do it. He didn't reveal the operations. He won't explain either, but he made the principle clear. The money that fuels the regime has become Israel's declared target. And here's where the contradiction lies, folks. On one side, the United States is helping to unfreeze and get money to the Iranian regime. On the other hand, Israel is officially saying it will hunt down every dollar that tries to reach the hands of the Ayatollahs, because they know that every one of those dollars comes back in the form of a missile aimed at Israel. They are two allies in theory, now only in theory, going in opposite directions. One opens the money tap, the other rushes to close it. And now we've reached that part I promised you at the very beginning of the video, the most ambitious target Israel has ever set for itself. The defense minister revealed today what Israel's next big goal is, and it's not on land, nor at sea, nor in the air. It's in space. He said that Israel wants superiority in space, and it's not just about putting satellites up there and defending itself. Listen to what Katz explained, folks, and pay attention because this is really powerful. Open quotes. Space is the place where it doesn't matter how much territory you hold down here, it doesn't matter the size of your population, it doesn't matter many of the things that matter or weigh here on Earth. The goal is not just to be in space, and it's not just to defend what we put there, it's to act from above, from space downwards. Now, let me explain to you what that means. He said much more than that, right? Because it's really big, guys. And Israel already wants to build the capability to act from space towards Earth, both to jam and take down enemy systems from a distance and to hit targets from above. In other words, to fire at Iran, for example, coming from space. And Katz also stated something impressive. He said that today, no country in the world has the capability to hit targets from space, none. And that Israel wants to be the world leader in this. And I can tell you right now that I think we're already there, okay? I think so, okay? Just a theory. I think we're already there. We're already there, and they're announcing something that's almost ready. And this is bigger than it seems, right? Because Israel is a small country, smaller than almost all the states in Brazil, surrounded by enemies and jumping ahead of the biggest powers. That's what they want, to jump ahead of the biggest powers on the planet in a field that no one dominates yet. That's what I'm talking about when I say that Israel lives in reality, while some people out there are discussing make-believe agreements, fantasy agreements. Israel is thinking 10 years ahead, aiming for space. And there's more action from Israel today that I need to show you because it's a diplomatic punch and it's right in the face of Erdogan, the president of Turkey. Remember I told you earlier about the threat of American stealth fighters ending up in Turkey's hands? Well, today a detailed analysis came out showing that the situation is even more serious than it seemed. According to this analysis, Erdogan is following a doctrine he calls the Blue Homeland. It's the idea that Turkey would have rights over a huge area of sea in the eastern Mediterranean, an area that includes dozens of islands that belong to Greece and that also includes exactly the route where Israel is planning to lay a submarine power cable to connect to Europe's electrical grid. Everyone pay close attention. Greece, I'll show you that video, okay? There's a video of the Greek minister clearly talking about Turkey's threat against Greece. In other words, Greece is feeling threatened and getting ready for war against Turkey, okay? This is all part of that plan. It's connected to that plan from Erdogan. But there's also the story about the submarine cable, right? You see, it's not just about airplanes. It's Turkey thinking it owns the sea where Israel's interests are at stake. That's why the tension has escalated so much. And what was Israel's response? Elegant and sharp. Israel's foreign minister, Gideon Sa'ar, will bring to the government for approval a proposal for Israel to officially recognize the Armenian genocide. Let me explain what this is because this here is such a sharp jab, guys, at Erdogan. Erdogan. What happened was practically, we can say, the elimination of a people, right, of the Armenian people, practically, guys, which started in 1915 in the last years of the Ottoman Empire, which is the empire that gave rise to today's Turkey. About 1.5 million Armenians were killed. 1.5 million, guys, 1.5 million. Men were taken for forced labor, women, children, and the elderly were driven on death marches in the desert. There are already 32 countries that recognize this, and Turkey to this day denies that it ever happened. It's a national wound for the Armenians. So you get their move, right? At the moment when Erdogan raises his tone against Israel, Israel responds by targeting exactly Turkey's most sensitive point, without firing a single shot. Just with historical truth and a signature, Israel takes what Turkey most wants to hide and puts the spotlight on it once again. It's diplomacy playing hardball, eye for an eye, but with a lot of class. And to finish with some good news, one of those that shows life returning to normal, Lufthansa, one of the largest airlines in Europe, announced today that it's coming back to Israel in full force. Dozens of flights per week back to the skies of Israel in the coming months. This says a lot because a serious company doesn't put a plane where it thinks there's risk. When the companies start coming back in large numbers, it's because they trust that Israel is stable for now, it's safe, and it's standing strong. The facts, once again, speaking louder than fear. Let me break down all this information. I know it was a lot, guys. A flood. I'll try to break it all down into three parts, okay? To make it clearer in your mind what happened, guys. First, what is fact? Iran fired at the ship in Hormuz, that's a fact, and they're controlling who passes through the Strait. In Lebanon, on the ground, Israel did not back down. And Israel announced three big things: the hunt for every dollar that reaches Iran, the goal of superiority in space, and the recognition of the Armenian massacre right on top of Erdogan. Second, what is the United States fantasy, right? A well behaved Iran, a calm Strait of Hormuz, and Israel's withdrawal from Lebanon, which neither the Lebanese nor the Israeli army itself could confirm. And third, what to observe. If Trump will finally react to Iran's shots in Hormuz, if he will launch an attack, very unlikely, right? But let's say it happens. So that's something to watch. Or if he will remain inactive. If the direct line between the Americans and the Revolutionary Guard will move forward there in Qatar, and if the recognition of the Armenian massacre will pass in the Israeli government as law, and the extent of the damage this causes in the relationship with Turkey. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. None of this is settled. And everything can still change in the next few hours. But there's a lesson that runs through the entire day today. Talk is easy. Anyone can paint a pretty picture of peace. The hard part is the facts. And facts are stubborn, folks. The fact is that Iran tests and advances wherever they're allowed. The fact is that Israel doesn't wait for anyone to take care of its own security. Israel shuts off the enemy's supply, aims for space, and responds to Erdogan in kind. Some people thought Israel was afraid of Erdogan. Look at that, folks. That's a direct response. While some describe the world they wish existed, Israel acts in the real world. And I'm here, as always, following every event, separating what's real from what's staged or fiction, and I always come back to bring you the story as it is, straight from Israel, right from where everything happens. Thank you for the super sticker, Aguinaldo. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, thank you. If the defense minister says they're going to block every dollar, then what's happening in Iran's banks? And could Israel be responsible? This could already be the beginning of something related to that. Proof? I believe it's Israel. Probably a cyber attack in Iran. Certainly, the day is approaching when Turkey will pay for the bloodshed on the land of thousands of Armenians. Yeah, but before that, Turkey will probably have to fight against Greece. Guys, there are several videos of two ministers in Greece talking a lot about this in the last few days and in the last 2 weeks. Trump won't do anything, said Andre Villa. I also think he won't do anything. Let tourism return to normal, said Mario. Does Brazil recognize Gino? No, it doesn't. Even Thelma. Thanks to the new channel members, Bruno Futebol. Thank you. Davi, the tireless one. Exactly. Granhai. Granhai. You were the one who gave the gift. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Reminder, the United States will be Pharaoh. Israel will be Moses. Libya. A protocol is being drafted for the partial withdrawal of the IDF from Lebanon. This protocol seems to me like the final nail in the coffin for Netanyahu's image. Stefan, there won't be any withdrawal from Lebanon, none at all. Israel will stay on the yellow line. This yellow line is equivalent to the yellow line that exists in Syria. It's equivalent to the yellow line that exists in the Gaza Strip. No one is going to leave the yellow line. What you're reading, this partial withdrawal, is about the rest, above the yellow line up to the Litani River. From there, Israel will withdraw. Israel has no reason to stay there. And the one who will replace them in that area is actually, let me put it here. The one who will replace them there is the Lebanese army, folks. The Lebanese army. Let me just put it here for a second. Yeah. This map is really cool. One moment. I'm going to put the map here. And the planes are still training there. Just to remind you about the planes, folks, the training continues in that Gulf region. Just a second, guys. I can't put it up, and I don't know why. Anyway, Israel won't leave the yellow line. If you're not familiar with it, check the previous video where I explained it clearly. Israel won't move from there. They're going to stay on that yellow line no matter what. That's already been decided. There's already a law that approves it. So there's no way to change that, okay? That's not going to change at all. In other words, Israel is going to leave. Now I'm going to show it here. Let me see here. I'm going to show Lebanon here. Let's go. Do you see this yellow line here? Look, this one, this is the border of Israel, down here, the border of Israel. We have here Kiryat Shmona, we have here Shlom and Naria, and this yellow line here, look. Israel will not leave this entire yellow line area. Okay? What will leave are from these 2 points. Look, Israel is also located here in this region. There are Israeli forces here. There are forces beyond the yellow line. Over there in Beaufort, okay? Beaufort. See here? Look, in Nabatia, there are also forces here in this region. Israel will withdraw from these areas. They will withdraw, but not from the yellow line. Because the moment they withdraw from this yellow line, Netanyahu will lose the elections. Guys, it's a political issue, so that's not going to happen. Exactly like it is here in Syria. Nobody even talks about Syria anymore, right? But Israel is still here. Look, beyond this line here, this is the Golan Heights border. And Israel remains and will not leave here anymore. It will not leave this region anymore. There's no one who can make Israel leave here. It's not even discussed anymore. Even Jolani himself doesn't talk about it anymore. He doesn't even bring up the subject because he knows that Israel won't leave there. My friends, that's it for now. If anything serious happens in the Middle East, I'll be back at any moment. If not, we'll meet again tomorrow at noon with more updates from Israel. I also made another video on the other channel for those who haven't seen it yet. It's a video for those looking to learn how to invest in stocks here in Israel, okay? So, I made a video showing how it's possible to do this from Brazil. With reais, not with dollars. From inside Brazil, you can invest in the stock market here in Israel. The video is on the other channel. I'll leave the link pinned in the first comment of this video if you want to watch it, okay? It's a very short video. It's not very long. Quick note for friends seeking investment options. I'm not selling anything and it's unrelated to me. This is solely between you and your bank. I'm just showing this possibility. A lot of people reached out to me asking about it, so I made a video talking about it. Hugs to all my friends. See you next time. See you at the next live stream.